we go. We're live. Final Saturday regular season MLB show. Matt, I'm feeling a little bit sad. As much as I love baseball, it's time to say goodbye. But then they give you a final kick in the teeth, and I hate playoff baseball. It's just not fun for DFS.
I agree after the first round. The first round, I think, is decent. Not as good as a main slate, like a regular main slate. But what I like about like the first round is you'll still have 3 to 4 games per day and really good pitchers usually and really good offenses. So it's like least like kind of different in that regard. I feel you though. It's not even close to as fun as regular season baseball.
And then if my beloved Mariners don't make it, I guess I'm rooting for Baltimore. I'm holding some Baltimore tickets of all things. I got Baltimore winning the AL East, cha-ching. I got Baltimore winning the American League and then the World Series. So there lies my rooting interest if the Mariners don't make it. Oh,
seems wide open.
It does. You look at Tampa Bay, they're losing an offensive player every other day. They've lost an entire starting rotation. You've got, just everything's upside down in the American League West. Texas faltering, but then coming back, but they're only separated by a game from Houston and Seattle, and everybody's playing down to the wire. Last night, Arizona ended up losing to Houston, which cost Arizona their controlling their destiny. If I looked at the magic numbers right today, but they're still alive. And then you've got the Cubs lurking as well. So pretty much everything's locked in. The one thing is we're getting people to collect in. Everybody, please do hit that like button. It does help us out. If you are on podcast, remember you can leave a 5-star rating and review. That helps us out as well. Matt, why is Atlanta and Los Angeles continually playing their stars? Is this to boost Acuna? I get why Acuna is playing. I even get why Mookie Betts is playing, but they're just running them out there every day. I would have thought they've been getting days off.
I agree, but like on that note, not sure how hard you followed the past couple days. Acuna and Olsen were pulled in like the 3rd inning last night.
Okay.
So you had Pilar come in for Acuna and then Luke Williams
after Acuna had a couple steals already.
Yeah. He really got pulled. He had 17 DK points in like 2 innings. So he got pulled after that. And then the Dodgers did the same thing with Mookie and Freeman a couple nights ago. Now they were losing in that spot. So
but they both played the doubleheader. I couldn't believe that. So my only
I don't think Mookie did.
Oh, you're right. Mookie did. Muncy did though. But my only thought is they're trying to help them get the MVP. Right.
It's tough for baseball.
Yeah.
Like it's tough for baseball because you just don't have enough guys like to say, oh, these guys are going to rest until the playoffs. Like it's kind of like you got to give them some time off, but they got to play and stay fresh in the other time. So I'm with you. Murky territory right now. We're just kind of dealing with that all over.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I guess, don't plays out too hard. Don't steal if you're a star, right? All those things. So, because I see Clayton Eskew saying, well, they've got plenty of time to flex. Yeah, unless you tear your knee, a thumb ligament, you fracture your wrist, you do something foolish, and we're right on the cusp. Like a team like Tampa Bay running out the remaining ambulatory players they have, and it's like, you guys can't change. You're going to be the top wild card. What are you doing? Kind of thing.
That kind of is my question, what you were just touching on. Not even that, like they're, I agree. They should be getting some rest at least every couple days. But to me, like, why are they still stealing bases and stuff? Yeah. Like that just seems it just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I can just, I hope it doesn't happen. But that always makes me just a little bit nervous because every year somebody gets hurt somehow. Who was it? The beginning before the season, the Mets closer, like the guy with the trumpets,
Diaz.
Hurt himself celebrating the World Baseball Classic. That sucked. It was the day after I drafted him in the season long or the Dynasty League with T McBee. So I went from having, oh my God, I can't believe I got this guy. This is the most convoluted draft you've ever seen. We have like 6 types of free agents. We have 3 different drafts, and that doesn't even count the mid-season minor league draft that we have. So it's 7 pages of rules. I have to call him up or Tim constantly texting the league commish. And this is my 3rd year in it. It's like, can I do this? Is this if this? Is somebody going to say, no, you screwed up and that's now my player? I don't want to do that with these guys. So, but I'm going to miss baseball. But we got baseball to talk about today. And then we got college football coming up at 11 a.m. That is College Football Live Before Lock with Matt Kajeski and Ben Barasa. You guys are going to want to check that out. We've got some fun over here. Oh, new promo. Bet365 now available in Kentucky. So you guys want to definitely check that out. And let me share my screen here, because here's a valuable thing that we do not talk about enough on Stochastics. So let me get to this feature. There we go. So we have this whole page of promos that you guys can get to. So if we look at my screen, I've put up the Bet365 promo there. But if you go over to stochastic.com, if you look at the homepage, there's just in on the left, there's a whole drop down that says deals. We've got all of the deals there. DFS site deals. Look, there's like 9 different DFS sites we have deals with. There's online casinos. There's our own discounts. There are sports betting, DFS, etc. And you click on any of those and you get to all the deals on the page. Now, the thing you want to remember about Bet365, they're only available right now in Kentucky, which just literally launched 48 hours ago. Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia. Right now in Kentucky only, if you go make a wager there, you bet $1, get $365. That's going to go away inside of the week. That happened in Virginia. It didn't last very long. I wasn't in Virginia, so I couldn't take advantage of it because I was down here in Florida. But if you're in Kentucky, take advantage of that one now. And then if you're in any of the other 5 states, that Bet365 is available. And you can come through the links here on our promo page, and you can get bet $1 and you get $200 in bet credits. But act fast on these promos because they do go away. But that's a fun little page that we have here that gets you everything, because I can't tell you the number of times where everybody bitches about how much we talk about this stuff on the show. And then first question I get from, or most common question I get from everybody, do you guys have any deals? We talk about them nonstop. But yes, let me help you because we want you here. So yes, I will go find it for you, but we do have that landing page, of course. All right, Matt, let's jump on in. Doesn't seem to be any weather issues, if I remember correctly. I feel slightly naked. I did not write an article today for baseball. I wrote a football article. So this is my first time without a baseball article to reference. But the Mets game 1 looks like the only issue for this. I don't think game 2 is in the player pool, but it's a 9 game 18 player team player pool tonight. So we're going to talk about that. Starting at 7 o'clock, there's a little mini slate at 1 o'clock with games at 1, 3, and 4. We've got the tools and everything for that. And then there's only there's 2 games at 8 o'clock and 2 games at 9 o'clock. So everything's kind of consolidated at 7 o'clock because it's all things college football at this point on Saturdays. So let's jump on in, Matt. We're going to it's an 11 game slate. There we go. We have the Yankees at Kansas City. Bit of a reversal of fortune last night. Did not expect Carlos Rodon to have negative 20 points on Yahoo. I still managed to cash in my double ups, even though I had him. But negative 20 points. He threw 35 pitches, did not get an out. Like, that's hard to do because he had like 30 strikeouts in his 20 innings heading into that. Shocker of shockers, but we're at baseball right now, and we're at the wonky part of the baseball season. We have Clark Schmidt up on the mound tonight. He has been mostly decent here. He's going against Steven Cruz. What are you liking here from our first game of the slate?
As far as pitching goes, not a ton, to be quite honest. I'm seeing Alec Marsh coming in for Kansas City after whoever the starter is or the opener is.
The opener, yeah.
Yeah, as far as Clark Schmidt goes, like, he's cheap. I don't hate him here at 7K. Obviously, a good ballpark for pitching. He doesn't really look different to me than the other 5 guys or whatever it is in his range. So I think he's a fine play. Certainly not someone that I'm going to go out of my way for. Not a cash game guy, probably like the next level down. So, like, you can start looking at him in tournaments. Again, there aren't a ton of pitchers on this slate you're going to feel overly comfortable with. It is a little bit better than last night, though. So I don't think you have to play Clark Schmidt. That said, he's 7K. So if anyone, had a strong feeling about him, I wouldn't argue with it. He's just not for me.
All right, that makes sense. Are you going back to these offenses? We've got close to 90 degrees in Kauffman Stadium today. Light little breeze out there to left field in the 8 to 12 mile an hour range. What do you got going on for the offenses here? Can they recapture the magic of last night?
I like both offenses here, but the problem is I think there are just other offenses I like more. So I don't think either the Yankees or the Royals are bad looks here. For instance, the Yankees are third in our top stack tool, coming in with a 7.5% chance of being the top stack. The ownership's already there, though. So also similar to last night, only the Twins are getting more ownership than the Yankees. I get it because they're in a good spot facing weak Kansas City pitching and they're cheap, but the ownership's already there. So in tournaments, they're not my favorite spot on the board, knowing that there are a bunch of other weak pitchers on the slate. So while I understand why the Yankees are getting ownership because of their price tag, the matchup, etc., it's very similar to yesterday for me in that the ownership's already there. There are other places I'd rather go in tournaments. Kansas City, I think, is one of those teams you could look at. Liked them more yesterday with the higher volatility of Rodon. They look like a middle-of-the-road stack today. 3% chance of being a top stack, 3% ownership, literally right in the middle there. So I think the offense that you're really looking at here is the Yankees. Them and the Twins look like where you want to go for cash games. In tournaments, I don't mind playing the Yankees. Probably wouldn't want to play them with the Twins, and I'd rather play the Twins. Like, our tools make that crystal clear. Now, wouldn't be crazy to see the Twins even higher owned than we have projected. So that's where you start to kind of gather the nuance, et cetera. But as of right now, given our tools, the Yankees look good, but they're over-owned. The Royals look okay, and they're owned appropriately.
All right, heading into our next one here, Milwaukee has clinched their playoff lot. They're still rolling out some of their starters here. They're going against Jordan Wicks today, the lefty on the mound. They're countering with their own lefty, Eric Lauer, both in the low 8,000s. Well, I guess 8,000 even on DraftKings here. As you mentioned, pitch is going to be a bit of a challenge. It's going to be that way the rest of the season, right? You've got starters going out there. They've made it this far and they haven't gotten hurt. If their teams are playing for something, why push them? If their teams aren't playing for something, why push them? Unless there's, who is it? Jordan Zimmerman with the no-hitter on the last day of the season 10 plus years ago or whatever that was. Unless there's something fun like that going on, it's kind of hard to consider anybody because they got a whole bunch. They had, the roster's expanded by 2 for no longer the 40-man rosters, but they expanded by two or three now. But they've got a bunch of fresh arms in the bullpen. A lot of people, this is the last hurrah. Do we want to consider these pitchers? 4.6 implied total on both sides. I thought this would be a little bit lower.
Yeah, agreed. I'm also seeing Eric Lauer here for the Brewers, but our tools and DraftKings have Jansen Junk. I'm not sure if that's an opener situation or.
I think Junk is potentially an opener. We haven't seen Eric Lauer start for a while.
Okay.
I don't remember if he was hurt or not, but you're right. Now that you said that, ESPN had Junk listed as the starter, but I knew he was a reliever. I was trying to stream for those last few season wins as I'm going down to the wire in some of my leagues. But I was like, I'm not playing that guy. Yeah. So basically a whole lot of meh here in the Midwest.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, this is just one where there's 11 games on the slate. The pitchers aren't like complete trash by any means. So the offenses don't look great, but the pitchers aren't great either. So they don't look great. Definitely one where, I could see if I'm playing one lineup, I'm probably not getting much of this game. I think this is a game like for 150 maxers to just kind of sprinkle in.
Yeah. I saw somebody earlier in chat. Hope they were saying it in jest. Can you guys break down all the pinch hitting scenarios tonight? There's a lot of them. Similar to the pitchers having short hooks. This is the last chance for a lot of people to do anything before the offseason. So if the Cubs come out with a strong lineup, there's still a chance that they're going to go short or they're going to replace some of their players. Remember, this isn't like when we had 40-man rosters. So you're not seeing, like, even the hangover lineups these days still end up with 3 or 4 regulars in it, right? And then it's just the 4th or 5th outfielder and the utility man get in that day, basically. But they still have to have some of the starters who just, they get bumped down the order a little bit, right? To get more time for that alcohol to disperse throughout their body. Yeah, nothing overly exciting in this one. But as we saw last night, offense comes in from funny places in baseball, particularly down the stretch. Now, here's a game that we should actually have some interest in. God only knows what's going on with Michael Wacha, but he's had some solid moments this year. The White Sox are a disaster. They're basically like the Oakland Athletics and the Detroit Tigers at this point of the season. They're the definition of putridity, as Dave Lochran and Davis Maddock used to say once upon a time on their podcast. The Padres, did they get mathematically eliminated yet? I know they're one game away. Okay, so they're out. So we don't even know who's going to if they're going to play Soto or Tatis or Machado. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they put those guys in bubble wrap at this point.
Because last night was the night they clinched, so you're right. Or last night was the night that they got knocked out, excuse me.
Yeah, I knew I went to bed at about 9 o'clock last night, 9:30. So I fell asleep, and then I woke up around 2, and I was scrolling through to see who won and who didn't. But old tired eyes looking at an iPhone at the middle of the night, it's not as good as it used to be. Things are a little blurry. So I was just seeing who was still around, because once I saw the Mariners one, I was like, oh, they have a chance. They got to win out and they need help. But I was excited for that. But I wasn't closely watching about who was completely out. So both these teams are out. So this is going to be, we need to see who the starting lineups are. I think Clevenger is okay if 1 or 2 of the core 4 are out for the Padres. I think Wacha is okay regardless of who starts for the White Sox, but just assume most pitchers are going to pitch about 6 innings would be my guess tonight. That's our baseline for tonight. Yeah, it's down like an out and a half from what normal is. So it's just saying that they still could go 7 or whatever. They could cruise through innings and such, but don't expect a lot of veracity with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% here. We see this eye to eye. I think both pitchers are fine. I prefer Wacha because the matchup's better, but Clevenger starts to look better and better the more San Diego guys are out. Yeah. Even if they run out like their quote unquote full lineup, I don't think Clevenger's a bad play though. The bottom of that lineup stinks right now. Clevenger's been pretty good. There aren't, aside from Strider, like who's really expensive and who knows how long of a leash he's going to have, there just aren't pitchers where you're like, okay, I need to roster him. Yeah.
Except yesterday, that was Nathan Eovaldi. This one is for you, Steven. I felt like I needed to roster him because if he did well, that was okay because, my Mariners sucked, but at least I had Eovaldi. And if he did poorly, that meant my Mariners probably won. I didn't see 8-0. So speaking of the Mariners, that's the game we're on now. Now we've got some stuff to talk about here. So you've got the only concerns we have with the pitching. 1, they're going against 2 good offenses, and 2, sign of struggle. These teams have to win. They're not going to leave the pitcher in to gut it out, especially Andrew Heaney. Luis Castillo may have a little bit of a longer leash, just because he has pitched at a top 5 guy this season. But
here's my thing with Castillo. Like, I agree with you. You have to worry about that, like with all pitchers who are pitching for teams that are, playing for something because they just don't have the wiggle room or the leash to mess around with. That said, Castillo's one of the top, arguably 10 pitchers in baseball. Yeah. It's not like the Mariners are running out guys that are better options than Castillo. So I'm sure he's going to be given a little bit of wiggle room. That said, like if he doesn't have it tonight, they'll take him out.
Do you remember Bob Walcott pitching in the playoffs late 90s against Cleveland? Or is that before your time for the Mariners? Back when it was at the Jake, a little bit before.
Oh, yeah. That's like very much. I was at the first game ever at the Jake Mariners in Cleveland. Randy Johnson pitched.
Okay.
Mariners were, yeah. Oh, the Indians Mariners was like a great kind of semi-rivalry in the late 90s. Both teams were really good.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Those were good offenses too, on both sides. All right. Speaking of offenses, Andrew Heaney does allow home runs. When healthy, he's a good pitcher. We've been saying that for the last 10 years. And what does he have in those 10 years? I don't have it in front of me, but like 150 starts or whatever. He just is always perpetually dinged up. The Mariners have kind of been all over the place against lefties this season, but they do have Julio Rodriguez out of that early couple months slump. You've got Eugenio Suarez, who just brings the lumber when he connects, also brings the strikeouts. And then Teoscar Hernandez, if you ever go look at his numbers against lefties, they are off the charts good over the last couple seasons. So I like those guys as the core three. JP Crawford, tougher ask. He's okay in lefty-lefty situations, but the guy has just been the horseshoe this year for the Mariners. I mean, what did he have a base hit win the other night? He had a grand slam within the last week, or a 3-run home run or something. He just has the magic right now, and he's at getting it done in all aspects of the game. So he's pretty solid. And then you got switch hitting Cal Raleigh there. You've got Dylan Moore, who just has power to both sides of pitchers with both handedness, righties as well as lefties. So those guys are good, but I don't know that a stack is in order here, because if Heaney starts doing bad, Texas is going to go to the bullpen, right? Or a fresh arm, or do something. This is their plan for the season. Now, these teams, Texas has the lead in the American League West, but if they lose 2 and the Mariners win 2, not so much. And then Houston is lurking right between them, right? So this is down to the wire. What are your thoughts in this game for a DFS perspective?
I'm confused as to why our tools like Heaney so much and really don't like the Mariners at all.
6,800 is the only thing I can think of on defense.
Same. Like, for me, though, I just, like, he hasn't even thrown more than 34 pitches in any of his past 4 outings. So, okay, maybe we're assuming that he has a full workload. In that case, then I'd like him a lot more. The ownership's already there. I think everything you mentioned is spot on, where, like, he is the guy that's going to have a really, really short leash, because he already does anyways. So they're certainly not going to throw him out there in must-win territory. I also don't understand why our tools hate Seattle so much as far as the top stack goes. Like, they're only in front of Baltimore, which I also don't understand how Baltimore and Seattle facing Heaney and Crawford are behind the likes of Washington facing Strider. Maybe that will change. Maybe there's just stuff baked in there that I'm not, cognizant of. Either way, I think you're right. I don't really want to stack Seattle against Heaney either way, because if they start hitting well, Heaney probably gets pulled. Then you're dealing with a bullpen game, etc. However, in that case, they've obviously done enough to get to Heaney, so I don't mind their big bats here. Crawford's a tough sell lefty on lefty, as you mentioned, but they've got a ton of right-handed power. And then, throwing Crawford in there in a stack, if you're assuming that Heaney gets taken out, I don't hate it. That said, there are plenty of other spots I like more tonight, for sure.
All right, I'm looking in a few more places. It does look like Eric Lauer is going to start.
And I'm seeing he hasn't pitched since, like, May.
So I'm calling, and I think this is important, because looking around the industry, he's popping in a couple projections here. So I'm quickly calling up I saw someone in chat was asking good baseball things. Baseball Reference is my go-to. FanGraphs is number 2. Baseball Reference has the best game logs. You can easily find their minor league stuff. And then it's also any of the reference, Pro Football Reference, Basketball Reference, Baseball Reference. You can do it at FanGraphs too. I just find it more utility at the other side. You can group their game logs by highlighting them, and you can get different information. So Lauer was sent down. So he must have got hurt in some form or fashion. He missed most of June and most of July. He came back at the end of July and then did one outing, and then he's been with AAA, the Nashville Sounds, since. He has ramped up to 99 pitches in his last start. He was at 92, 101, 89, 75, and 99. I want to revisit that just a little bit, because that feels like he may eat some more innings tonight. Oh, now we got to go to Baseball Reference, and FanGraphs, and we go to their their roster resource page. So now we can go look at the Brewers, and we want to see who pitched. I should be sharing my screen to do this, but I'm not that nimble. So we want to see how has their bullpen been going. So they used 3 relievers last night. 21 pitches for Bryce Wilson. Clayton Andrews had 39, and then Caleb Ushley had 38. Everybody still is relatively fresh, but we know that they're probably, they're going to end up using their starters, I would say, between Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, and maybe Miley or Hauser, piggybacking them in the first round. So I was going to say he may have to take more from the bullpen. I don't think he will, but he's fully stretched out. He's probably not going to make their playoff roster because he's been down in the minors for so long. My guess is he's going to be in for a normal workload. I would say 85, 90 pitches. All of a sudden, now we got to go and say, oh, well, who are the Cubs going to put out there tonight? They go with a slightly watered down lineup. Then maybe we look to Eric Lauer. But I was surprised when I saw him at our site and a couple other sites. Had him up there, so worth circling back on. Sorry, didn't mean to derail that.
No, based on that, I think you could do a lot worse than using Lauer here. Because I agree with everything you said. Like, this is where the nuance comes into play. He's probably not going to make the playoff roster because he hasn't been on the roster in months, and he's a starting pitcher. So he's like the guy that you could see throwing a full outing today, if he's pitching decent. I like it.
All right. If we didn't have the clock, or if we didn't have the show directly behind us, Jason, I would show some more screen sharing here. You can see Josh does a ton of screen sharing, mostly for his basketball show, the process, he calls it. So he goes live at like 6:30 in the morning, and what he does is he walks you through how he does the rotations for all the teams, how he tweaks things, etc. He just shows you the process behind everything. Now, he doesn't do our projections at Stochastic, but he did do our basketball projections for the first season, if not two, when we were at Osmo. That was back when Alex was like not sure if he wanted to share his projections or not, and then things developed throughout the industry. And once you realize everybody's throwing 10% randomness on projections, it's like, all right, that just now everybody's R squared with 10% on it looks pretty good. So he's like, whatever. It's now everything's going to be his. But Josh still builds his own stuff from scratch. So when you watch his contenders videos for all of the sports, and when you watch his Prize Picks videos for all of the sports, he builds every model from the ground up. So he goes through and he shows you cleaning the glass and Basketball Reference and a myriad of other sites that he uses to get basketball information from, who prior game rotations. There's multiple sites that give you game flow box scores, sites that show you different depth chart's not the right word, but different, not rotation either, but when teams change up, when they've played people previously, he's got ways where he can quickly look and say, hey, how did these two teams match up when they played 2 weeks ago? Stuff like that. That's really cool. So even if you're not looking at that stuff for day of, it's just good to hear what he has to say about it. But you can also see all of the things that are thought about when they go into projections. This brings it full circle. So when teams are playing in Coors, when somebody's a really good strikeout pitcher against a really bad strikeout team, right? When two fast-paced basketball teams are playing against each other, that's all taken care of in the projections. You're just double counting anything where you're really pushing the scale. Now, next breath, we also turn around and say, but yes, that's also maybe influencing who ends up in your player pool, which is perfectly acceptable. You just need to remember that we know teams are playing in Coors Field at a mile-high altitude, right? We know teams are going into Seattle where there was the hidden humidifier for 3 years that MLB didn't tell us about, right? All those fun things, but that's all taken into account for projections. But it's fun to see how they're created for that. All right, back to our game here. So let's circle back one last time here for Texas, since we took 3 detours on our way to finish up this game. So yes to the Mariner core hitters. Mia to Heaney, who probably has a shorter leash than we first expected. Castillo looking sort of solid. Who are the hitters you're afraid of the most for if you're rostering Castillo? Is it Adolis Garcia, the Corey Seagers of the world, Nate Lowe? Who is it?
I think it's Semien, Seager, Adolis, those three guys. Texas is healthy now, so their lineup's really good. The Castillo still looks elite tonight, just given the fact that, he's probably right behind Strider as far as like talent goes from the pitching spot today. And it's not like he's in a great matchup, but I expect a full workload. He's a lot cheaper than Strider. I think Castillo is probably the top pitcher on the slate and her ownership bears that out. He's projected to be the highest owned pitcher. I have no qualms with that at all.
All righty, back to some new games that we haven't talked about yet. Boston at Baltimore. You've got Cutter Crawford going against the Orioles. Orioles gave us the hangover lineup last night because they clinched the best record in the American League. They also got word on Thursday that their team signed a 30-year agreement to stay in Camden Yards. So Adam Scherer and the team was partying, not necessarily at the same place, but at least at the same time. Assuming we get most of the regulars back in here for Baltimore, how do you feel about Cutter Crawford at 6,800 on DK?
I don't like him as much as our tools do, which makes me like him a lot more. I mean, he is 5th in our top pitcher tool. I get it. Like after Castillo, it's kind of a big drop off, but 13.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, pulling 20% ownership. Like I don't love it, but he's too cheap. Give me him over Heaney for sure. Personally, I mean Crawford looks okay here. Baltimore, excuse me, as you mentioned, probably not running out as weak of a lineup as they did last night, but they're probably giving at least 1 or 2 of these guys an extra day of rest. So, certainly Crawford looks good here. I'm a little bit worried / just curious as to when, not if, our tools update and Crawford moves down and the Baltimore stack moves up. But maybe I'm just wrong there and that never happens.
I'm guessing it will a little bit. And I don't know what's in our secret sauce, but I know first run projections typically grab whoever was in the starting lineup before.
Right.
And we had, and they may have looked at that and said, "Oh, that's not right," and thrown a couple of the other players in. But if they're trying to, I mean, Ryan Mountcastle came back from injury, so I don't know, if we have him in the lineup or not. That could impact Ryan O'Hearn a little bit. Anthony Santander, maybe a day off. You're looking at Austin Hayes. They prefer him against lefties. Is he in the lineup? How far down does he go? Does Hearn bounce him? And Mountcastle plays the outfield. You've got Cedric Mullins in there as well. I mean, there's a lot of hitters in there. But if we're missing a couple of the key ones, we that could be slightly changing things. And when everything is so projected so tightly, when we're doing our rankings, I mean, it's like even when you look at football quarterbacks. Usually the 5th or 6th quarterback is within 3 points of the 17th quarterback, right? It's very minute degrees of things. That's very true in baseball as well. So a few things can tweak stuff. It's probably still directionally correct, but I would suspect that changes just a little bit. And I bet we have a 1:00 game, so I bet they have this all sorted out by about around 11:30. They're probably looking at the early game stuff now, and then they'll turn their attention to the main slate. But still, we're thinking about Kyle Gibson. He may not be needed in the playoffs, at least for the first round, depending on how it goes. They seem to be mostly healthy here, but I would expect a standard 5-6 innings from Gibson today, 80 or so pitches. That's going to how much you like him is really going to depend on what Boston rolls out as their offense. So it's sort of a neutral play, but the more Boston regulars that are out, like especially if a Devers is out, that all of a sudden really boosts Gibson. But otherwise, it's hard to tell at this point.
I agree. As of right now, he's just a guy to me, but presuming that Boston sits a couple guys like Devers, as you mentioned, then he bumps up quite a bit.
All right, the Reds and Cardinals, and not to fear, we've got a few spots where we'll make some stands here. Reds and Cardinals, you've got Connor Phillips, you've got Drew Rom. Rom's been eminently hittable up here in the show. Look to the righties for the Reds. I think the Reds are probably a borderline top 4, top 5 stack. They would be cemented top 3, top 4 if this game was in Cincinnati. It's in St. Louis, but it is going to be warm. Not quite as humid as it is normally. It is in the summer when we start talking about baseball weather or home run weather and the stadium being just, a golf shot away from the Mississippi. It's going to be warm in the mid 80s today and slightly humid by comparison to Baltimore and in New York and some of the places, Philly, where it's in the 60s. That's a big difference. So this is now one of our better hitting environments. This is kind of like in the spring where you start thinking about, where's the weather warmer, and that's going to be a dramatic change over some of the other environments. To me, this looks mostly like an offense situation. Goldschmidt, did he start or was he scratched late? All I saw is I looked at some of my lineups last night. I'm like, oh, he got subbed out for, and he had a 0. So I knew he was dealing with the bulky back. I just say that because I don't know if he'll be in the lineup today. I don't know if you were watching it that closely last night.
I was. I was on the Reds, so I was definitely watching that. He got pulled out once they were up like 14-2. So he started and then got taken out.
Okay. So the report I saw may have been, they lifted him for ass kicking, and they just didn't say
right.
Kicking. They said sore back.
The Reds are really playing for their playoff lives here. I don't like them anymore because of that, but I don't like them any less. Drew Rom is not a guy I'm afraid to pick on. This is a spot we're finally starting to get to offenses that I like a lot. Yeah. Since he looks really good, as you mentioned, top 4 stack for sure for me. I like them more than the Yankees in tournaments, just given the ownership discrepancy. Probably right behind Minnesota and Atlanta in my eyes. So I like Cincy a lot here. I also don't mind some shots on St. Louis, but I also don't mind Connor Phillips either. St. Louis is running an awful lineup out these days, especially the bottom half. Phillips isn't a guy you're going to feel overly confident in. I mean, he hasn't even pitched that much, but pretty good matchup against St. Louis. The ownership's not there. Our top pitcher tool likes him. Like, he's coming in with an 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 2% ownership. I like him, I think, more than like the Gibsons, Schmitz, Heaneys of the world. He's a little bit more expensive, so like you got to make it work, but the price shouldn't really be an issue. And I think he's interesting in tournaments, if nothing else.
Yeah, no Arenado, no Wilson Contreras. They're both on the injured list. So that's 2 of their 4 best hitters. So that makes a big difference in that lineup. Hey, you know what makes a big difference? Getting stuff for free or saving things. So let's talk about Stochastic Avatar promotion here. I'm going to drop this little link there in the YouTube chat. But if you go to Stochastic Avatar or stochastic.com/avatar, you can download the Stochastic Avatar up your DFS side of choice. Finish top 3rd. That's first, second, or third. No 50-way ties. That doesn't count as first, second, or third. That counts as being 50th. But first, second, or third in any contest of at least 5,000 players, and you will be eligible to win 30 days of Stochastic premium content. I say eligible because you got to follow a couple other things to do that. I dropped the link to the different rules that are in there, but they're not that hard. Take a screenshot showing your win and the Stochastic Avatar. Send that to Stochastic HOF on Twitter, or now X. And you will, 1, be featured in the Hall of Fame segment. And 2, if it does qualify for a win, it's your only one you've had for the year, then you're going to get 30 days of Stochastic Premium. Pretty good deal. Check that out. That is the Stochastic Avatar promotion. We are on to, this is a good one. Well, not if you're a Washington fan. Yoan Adon, not been good, close to a 7 ERA. Last time I looked, he is going against Spencer Strider, who was in the driver's seat to get that Cy Young Award. He's still good at strikeouts, but has been allowed some power. The Nationals somehow beat the Braves last night. Did not see that one coming. I still think you're okay with Strider. The challenge is they don't need him to do much tonight. They need him to get tuned up, not in a bad way, but stay sharp and be ready for the playoffs. That's not going to pay off a $12,800 salary. Even being contrarian here and going with him, Matt, what do you think an upside performance would be? Like 6 innings and 11 strikeouts, something like that? Is that enough to pay off $12,000? Even better, or have a ceiling on this slate that gets him to the raw score that you need, because we're going to have enough discount dandies with the call-ups and the bench players in position players tonight.
If you told me he went 6 innings and struck out 11, I would roster him. Okay. But I think that's like the high end of his upside today. So like, I don't think there's really much room for more there. And I would bet that he doesn't go 6 innings and get 11 strikeouts. Like, they just have nothing to play for in terms of, stretching him out beyond his comfort zone, just trying to get him ready for the playoffs as they're doing their entire roster. I have to vent a little bit on this game for just 1 second. I used Washington last night also, had a good night. they scored a bunch of runs like in the, I don't know, 6th or 7th, and they called 3 straight errors on the Braves, whoever the home scorer was. One of them was not an error. I mean, the last one, Jake Alou had a single. It was not an error, but he called it an error on Riley. Ended up costing me like first place in a GPP because of that. So it burns, but I mean, it's kind of what we're living with. At least I wasn't on the other end of that Angel Hernandez, Bryce Harper strikeout. Did you see that?
That was so.
I don't get it.
So just Angel Hernandez, like even the announcer was like, I watched it like 4 times, the clip they had on Twitter where you could see the announcers were even going, why is it that it's always Angel Hernandez involved in something like this?
And it's not just that he gets the call wrong. It's the arrogance that he portrays afterwards. Like, just watch it. You'll see. Like,
yeah, it was as much as Harper, as even when he was with the Nationals, clown question, bro, H. Harper, he was still annoying. But even on this one, I'm totally on his side. I'm like, just you can throw the helmet at the guy. It's almost worth it at this point. That was such an egregious call to do that. It's just, whatever.
The other thing about Strider here, just going back to that, the Nationals don't strike out a lot. So, like, they're not very good, but they also don't strike out a ton. So I just don't think it's the spot you ultimately want to pay up for Strider. I like the Braves a lot here. Probably my favorite tournament stack on the board. I'm a little concerned that they start pulling some shenanigans like they did last night with, if they start Acuna and their top guys, that they end up pulling them. There just isn't really much we can do with that. On that note, though, I do like the cheaper Braves, or like this, I wouldn't say cheaper, but the secondary Braves more than I usually do. Because those are the guys I feel comfortable.
Ozuna, Rosario, and Harris aren't going to get pulled.
Right. Because if they're going to pull
maybe Ozuna.
Well, the thing is, you got to keep a couple guys on your bench in case people get hurt, right? So, like, if Acuna's in, he's the one that's going to be, taken out in my perspective before those other guys. But even like last night, Forrest Wall started. He's not very good, but a guy like that, is not going to get taken out of the game because this is the only time he's starting. So those secondary kind of crappy Braves pieces, they're in a great against Adone. They're going to be cheap. I like the entire Brave stack here. Adone is awful. It reminds me of whenever a team is facing Jose Urena. That team is always in play.
It's a good call. Oh, speaking of, you ran a train last night. I saw the show where you said you accidentally max entered did you max enter a 20 max or was it a 150 max?
It was a 150.
And how did your team do?
I max entered, I was trying to reserve my lineups. I was making 7 lineups and accidentally reserved 150. Didn't even realize until 20 minutes before lock. So I was frantically trying to just get out as many, withdraw. And, I know I could have reached out to my rep or whatever, but at that point, there was no time. The contest was about to fill. So ended up having
the things, when you hear us say, reach out to your rep, there's a variety of things. One, they don't like to do it if the contest is already filled. They will if they have plenty of time because then they want the contest. So every now and then, like on FanDuel or DraftKings, all of a sudden you'll see 8 other contests pop up that you're like,
yes,
where'd these come from? And it's usually in the leagues or the smaller 20 maxes for $1 or the one there's 1,000 20 max, whatever it is. And all of a sudden those will pop up. That's because an hour, usually they cut that off an hour or 90 minutes before someone had a family emergency, something like that. And the other thing they do is it's usually an all or nothing. You can't say, I only want these out to keep these in. The more you play for them, you can say, all right, take everything out from $100 and lower or whatever it is. But they don't like it to be picky. DK has it automated, but you still have to get to somebody because if you just go into regular ticketing, you may not get it in time. FanDuel, I don't know if it's automated or not yet, but they used to do it for you, but you basically had to get your rep and then they'd have to make somebody go in and do it manually.
I have a good relationship with my rep. I actually chit-chat with him semi-often. It just wasn't a situation I felt comfortable with. It literally was filled 10 minutes before. Wasn't even sure I'd hear back from him in time. So I just had to do what I had to do. And I ended up, like I said, made lineups and tried to get each 7, entered 20 times in the tournament. Didn't have Rodon. So it was a good night for me. Not having Rodon was huge.
Nice. Someone said you finished 16th?
I thought
overall?
It was 28th, but
still that's up there. So you're one of those guys, huh? You run a train. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I never do. I mean,
Sure.
I play higher dollar, lower entry stuff. When I do that, I like to throw my lineups in the big lottery, like the $15.
Right.
I want to see how that contest is going, but I don't max it out, and it just happened.
But you don't need 10 of the same lineup.
Exactly. 15. Exactly.
All right. You know where we want 10 or 20 of the same lineup? I think it might be in this Twins-Colorado game. Both teams approaching a 7 implied run total here. Emilio Pagan will be starting off this game for the Twins. Carl Kaufman sounds like he's going to be doing the same thing for the Rockies. It is going to be temperature 80 degrees in Coors Field, a 13 to 22 mile-an-hour wind out to center tonight. Those are gusts up to 22 to 25. Baseline wind looks like it's going to be 8 to 10. So, hello. One last hurrah here for Coors Field.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where actually Colorado looks pretty much just as good as Minnesota to me. Our tools don't agree with that. Obviously we like Minnesota a lot more. Kaufman is, probably a AAA or quadruple A type pitcher. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he's not in the majors next year. I mean, he's barely in the majors this year.
Like Angel Hernandez?
Yeah. Yeah. Minnesota looks great here. The ownership's there, though. So it's similar to last night. Like, they look really good. I'd rather get to them than the Yankees, who also have high ownership. But even though we have them coming in with leverage and under-owned as far as their top stack percentage goes, you still have to just be cognizant of their overall ownership. They will be the highest-owned team on the slate. They should be the highest-owned team on the slate. Definitely not one where you have to fade them. I think you certainly want some exposure, just a matter of how much.
All right. It's going to be the crux of the slate. I think it's totally acceptable, and the bullpen saw some action last night as well. So this looks like a good one. Owner's Box looks like a good one. They are the presenting sponsor of this show. We've teamed up with them to get you a couple deals here. One, if you sign up, make a $10 deposit, you got to come in through our link. Come in through our link, sign up, get a $10 deposit, put in a $10 deposit. They're going to give you a $5 Lightning ticket, contest ticket, and then another $5 contest ticket. And then they're going to send your information to us, and we're going to get you a promo code that gets you a full week of the NFL Max Sims package. That's nearly a $60 value. So you're going to put in 10. They're going to basically give you 10 and then the Sims package for a week. Oh, they also are doing a deposit match up to $500. You can put that in. There is a playthrough on that, but it's better than nothing. And if you're going to be playing over there, they also have a lot of overlay. So their contest this week has $35,000 up top, Superflex for NFL. It's been a while since anybody's done NFL Superflex. So it's a fun format. It's, as Lafayette and Ben are saying, it's not solved. I mean, yeah, you want to, if at all possible, play a quarterback in that Superflex. But guess what? Owner's Box knows that too. So they've tweaked the pricing. So you got to make some decisions. So there's not a ton of overlap per se, because there are some decision points to be had. No, by the way, our Sims package and our tools handle Superflex. What are you waiting for? See up above us here. There's the detail there. Everything you have. Get in there at Owner's Box. It's a good time. Link in our description below us here in the YouTube channel. All righty, Matt, 3 more games to go. Then we're getting out of here for College Football Live Before Lock. We've got the Dodgers in San Francisco. Clayton Kershaw. What is the over-under for Kershaw? 83.5 pitches tonight.
I'd be surprised if it goes over that personally.
Let's see what that one blonde-haired guy that does these sorts of projections says. Ooh, he says 91 tonight. I think that might be a little rich. Kershaw, semi sort of in play, but not really. He won't. Your hope is he doesn't go negative. We have a lot of pitchers here that can go single digit or backwards. That's all I got for him. On the other side, I don't want to take anybody against Kershaw or the Dodgers bullpen. And then for the Dodgers themselves, pinch hit risks, as we've been mentioning all show. What are your quick thoughts on this one? If anything, other than what I said.
Kershaw looks in play for me in tournaments, as you mentioned, but I like the other guys around him more. Castillo, who's getting the ownership, but I don't mind pitcher ownership. Even Merrill Kelly, I think that's a good comparison point.
Yeah, and we'll circle back to that. I realize I got those out of order there.
No, you're okay. I don't really love Merrill Kelly here, but I think you can make the case that you'd play him over Kershaw just because of his, extended pitch count that he'll have over Kershaw. That said, never interested in picking on Houston. Kershaw's in a much better matchup against San Francisco. Kershaw's too expensive, but in tournaments, I don't think he's like the craziest play in the world, knowing that you're not going to get a full allotment of pitches from him. From the bats perspective, not much interest. The Dodgers are always in play. They're basically right on the Braves level as far as how good they are, but they're really expensive, very tough ballpark for hitting homers. So it's just not a spot that I'm really trying to go to here.
All right, then let's go back to the spot. Houston at Arizona. This is an 8:00 game. I jumped ahead there. We have Justin Verlander going against Arizona. Merrill Kelly on the other side. Both these teams essentially playing for their playoff lives. You saw Jose Urquidy get it done. I did not have that on my bingo card last night. I did have Jordan Lyles on a couple bingo cards last night. Unexpected that he got, his second win in a row. But what are you doing here with these pitchers? It's tough offensive matchups, but these are frontline starters. I mean, these are top 20 pitchers here. And we haven't been able to say that too many times today.
No, I think every side of this game is in play, especially if the roof is open like we've seen recently. And our tools bear that out. Both pitchers in this game are in the top third in top pitcher tool, and both offenses are in the top third as far as top stacks go. I don't really, I think you could quibble with that for sure, but it makes sense because, like you mentioned, we don't have a ton of good pitching on this slate, and both these offenses are really good. Like, I don't necessarily think Arizona should be ahead of Colorado in our top stack tool, but they certainly have a much better offense, and, even if the ballpark's not quite as good. So I think every side of this game is in play. Probably won't get to Gallon. I didn't get to Gallon last night in the same spot. They're basically the same price tag, and I think Gallon's a little bit of a better pitcher. So while it's a different slate, I probably wouldn't get to Kelly here. And I feel similarly about Verlander. Like, I like these guys because they're two of the better pitchers on the slate, but I don't like them because of the spots they're in. And like I said, I think you can make a real case in tournaments for playing any one of the four sides in this game.
The roof will be open, and this is a 5:10 local start time. Temperatures are going to be in the low 90s, which is seasonably cool for a place that sits at 110 or higher for 4 months, 5 months out of the year.
Still hotter than most of the other places on today's slate, though.
Yes. Oh, speaking of hot, you ever get the content out there on Twitter and then some random chick likes it? They only have one or two followers. I know. I totally had one, and her name's Samantha here, and so she messaged me, Sammy B. I can't believe this. She's kind of a hottie though. Dark sunglasses, long hair.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I think you know who you're talking about. I saw that. I'm like, oh, another bot. And then I clicked on it. I'm like, oh, no, they're following somebody I know. Hey.
That is my better half. Yeah.
Yes. I thought I'd have a little fun there as we wind down with our last game. Oakland Athletics in Anaheim taking on the Angels here. Joe Boyle, slightly intriguing, but at this point of the year, anybody going against Anaheim is intriguing. And then Davis Daniel. He only go like 2.5 innings last time he was out there?
He pitched last night, and he got
he pitched last night.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's where another thing in our tools that will have to be adjusted.
Let me see if that's been updated. What? No, still Davis Daniel. Let me go look at some other sites. How about Joe Boyle right now? How do you feel about him?
I feel decent. I mean, the Angels stink. Our pitcher tool likes him like a lot compared to where I thought they would. 7,800, 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 10% ownership. I think he's right in the mix there. This is one kind of on the other end of the spectrum between the Houston-Arizona game, which had really good pitchers and really good offenses. This game has not good either. So the pitchers aren't great. The offenses aren't great. So because of that, you can make a case for all sides.
All right. Nothing on and why would a team Twitter ever give you useful information? The things they don't like to tell you, what the weather's like. if their roof will be open or closed, and who the starting pitcher is if it's not obvious. Shout out social media. So we don't know for sure, but Davis Daniel, they did let us know, did get the win last night. He was projected to be this. It was his turn in the rotation coming up today, which is why you're seeing a lot of sites out there that have him. They haven't gotten around to fixing that yet.
The thing that makes it difficult though is like I'm
trying to count and see who's next. They've already burned through CSAT.
Yeah, they pitched. They only threw him 4 innings, and then they brought in Davis. That's kind of what's tricky about this slate is that he's projected to be our highest owned pitcher right now. So we got to take 36% ownership and kind of spread it out.
Griffin Canning went recently. I guess Kenny Rosenberg.
Yeah, I don't think he's gone. They've been using an opener a bunch too, so not exactly sure what they're doing. It's a ballpark upgrade for Oakland. Like if there was a time where you could stack Oakland, it's a slate like tonight in my eyes. I also like these offenses. You mentioned it like a while ago in this show, that late, September baseball, you get a lot of weird offenses going off. Part of that, and maybe this is just in my head, you've got these teams that are just newly out of it, right? Like teams that have been fighting the whole season are just now out of it because only a certain amount of teams make the playoffs. But then you've got these other teams like Washington, Oakland, the Angels that have been out of it forever. Nothing's changed from a month ago. So why should we expect any change, as far as the DFS slate goes? We shouldn't.
Yep. I see we got 2 minutes before we'll get on out of here, and then you're going to get College Football Live Before Lock with Gajeski and Arasa. But I see someone saying, hey, how should we use the lineup generator tonight? So what I'm guessing is you're wondering how to use it, knowing some of these teams the pitchers may not be who you want to get in there. You may have strong leans about them, etc. So if we click on FanDuel here, let's not worry about stack types. We'll just click all stack types. You can click all lineups, but you can choose a pitcher that you want. So let's say we want Castillo in all our lineups. We can lock him in. And then when we start building lineups, we can hit save. We can save up to 20, but you can find lineups. You're like, oh, I don't want Spencer Strider in there. You can either discard that whole lineup, or you can just come in and swap Strider out for somebody. In this case, let's say Waka. Now that's going to leave us a bunch of salary on the table, but then you can easily come down and say, you know what? Perhaps I don't want Anthony Volpe or Esteban Florial since they're super cheap, or you want an upgrade from Jordan Walker. You can come in and flip those guys out. So that's a more rudimentary way of doing it. But if you end up finding a lineup you like that has most of the parts that you like in it, this is a lot easier. So if it's one you're going to have to make like 3 or 4 changes, it's a pain in the ass. Just discard it till you get something you want. But you can lock in one hitter and you can lock in one pitcher. So by doing that, you can sort of shape what's happening, make a bunch of lineups, discard the ones that have the pitchers you don't like, and then say, okay, does this have a stack combination I like? And then you can come in and say, oh, how do I fine tune it? But that would be my recommendation for today. Tomorrow, everybody plays it. If they're doing it like they always do, everybody is playing at between 3:05 and 3:10. The late game is at 3:15. So everybody's starting within 10 minutes of each other tomorrow. It's going to be pure chaos. And the NFL contests are going to make the MLB contest of the last 3 Sundays make this one look gigantic. So sadly, I remember years past, like obviously the contests on Sunday for baseball were a lot smaller once NFL started. But now it seems like they're just non-existent. There wasn't even 50,000 combined across the entire industry last Sunday.
It used to be the type of thing
10,000.
Where I thought there was real edge because like all the pros are playing football, no one's playing baseball, but there's just not enough money in it to have an edge.
Yeah. So sad, but it's the way it goes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Hit that like button on your way out. Remember, we mentioned all sorts of deals you have here. You've got the lineup generator. We talked about that. For baseball, we also have that for NFL. You get the main slate for both DraftKings and FanDuel, and then you also get the 3 primetime slates, Monday, Sunday, and Thursday Night Football. We talked about Owner's Box. Up, I guess it's over here. Check the promotion there. Up to a $500 deposit match. You put in at least $10. They're going to give you a $5 lightning ticket and a $5 contest ticket, and you're going to get a week of the Stochastic Sims. We talked about Stochastic Avatar contest as well. We got all sorts of goodness here. Hit that like button one more time. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. I am at EMac DFS. And of course, it is stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.